So, in the sync world, there are a number of holy grails when it comes to a placement. One of them would be like a Super Bowl commercial. Another one would be a theme song. And one that has been a holy grail for a long time, since I first got into the licensing space, has been Grey's Anatomy. And there's a little bit of a history here that I want to touch on with Grey's Anatomy, because Grey's Anatomy was one of the very first shows that really opened up the world of licensing and sync placements to regular, everyday, independent musicians all throughout the world. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Grey's Anatomy came out at a time where it was now becoming very accessible for musicians to record high quality recordings of their songs without going to a studio. This is following the prevalence of Pro Tools starting to come to light, and Digital Performer and various DAWs. And then when Alexander Patsavis started licensing songs from independent musicians on a show like Grey's Anatomy starting in the early 2000s, that show started breaking a lot of bands like The Fray, bands like Snow Patrol. Even when I was living in Los Angeles, I was highly inspired to take the songs that I was getting placed, build a band around that, because of the success that bands like The Fray and Snow Patrol were having as a result of their placements. Yeah. That being said, our guest today, Will, just had a fantastic placement, featured vocal. What a great placement on Grey's Anatomy, on the season finale of Grey's Anatomy. And that is literally one of the holy grails. And it really is beyond just a holy grail. There's so much that I believe that independent musicians owe to Grey's Anatomy and to what Alex Patsavis did with that show in the early years, opening that world up for licensing for independent musicians like us. Just to be associated with it, Will, is a absolutely amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it is a dream come true. I've been watching that show personally since season 1. And discovering music on that show specifically for all the reasons that you just mentioned, Michael. And it really, Alexandra did us all a huge favor in kind of mainstreaming is kind of a dirty word, but like mainstreaming the use of independent music. She really did do a very good deed in that way. And so this is kind of a full circle moment for me, and super grateful for the opportunity. Of course, it was an unreleased song, and we can talk about the gymnastics that needed to be done in order to release that on time and get the Shazam numbers and whatnot. But it's really was a beautiful use, and you kind of never know. Like, you get a quote request in your inbox with a show like that. They try not to give away many details because it's important. Secrecy is important, and so you kind of just have to trust that the creators have a vision for your music. And in this case, I honestly, I don't think they could have put us in a better spot. It was really an incredible montage.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even when you see the quote request and it says, the use is up to 2:30. Sometimes when it confirms, it's still only 30 seconds. So when I saw the scene, I was blown away with how well your song worked for it. It truly felt like it was written for the spot. And sometimes the shoe fits, but it's still a little off. In this case, it was the perfect fit for that scene. So hats off to Justin and the entire team on Grey's Anatomy, of course, for choosing your song. I'd like to hear more about. I think we should get into the logistics behind releasing it so fastly, because it was amazing to see how you were just ready to go with that on such short notice. Let's touch on that, and then we'll talk about something else about the song. I'd like to hear also about the song itself and the creation. But let's talk about how you were, the timeline and what happened next. I guess when I first reached out to you, I think it was the week before it aired, right? They reached out to me on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday even, and it aired the following Thursday.
Yeah, I want to say it was Wednesday. I think we really didn't have much time at all. But you can keep me honest on that, or we all have emails, but uh I think it was Wednesday that we had the quote request in hand, which is, I mean, the DSPs, the streaming platforms recommend like 6 weeks minimum to line up a release.
Yeah.
Um, a quote request for folks listening or watching, it's not a guarantee that anything's going to land. So when you get a quote request for an unreleased song, you're kind of like rolling the dice if you line up a release. Um, this one was too big to not try to kind of catch. And so literally, I think we exchanged a few different emails, like maybe three or four, very quickly. And immediately after that, I was scheduling the release. And when I create a song that I feel has potential for sync, even if I don't have particularly a release plan in mind, the first thing I do is get cover art done just to have it. And then for this particular song, and this kind of ties into what you're wanting to talk about next, I think, Jody. This is a really special one to me personally, and I did want to release it this year regardless. I think I was gonna hold off until a little bit later on in the year, but I had started kind of like capturing some social content around it. Like anytime you have a song is storytelling, right? So in order to release the song and really tell people what it's about, like in this day and age, like you have to have a few different approaches, angles to social content that help you tell the story that the song is trying to tell through it itself musically. And so thankfully, we had that captured. I will say it was quite a scramble to edit it all. Um, and yeah, so the week leading up to the confirmation, which happened the day before the air date of the episode. So that week from Wednesday to Wednesday was just like a whirlwind, and just on top of everything else that goes on in a normal human's life. Maybe you have another job, maybe you have a family, maybe you're expecting a baby, um, maybe you have family members in the hospital, or all of the above. You have to be able to kind of like flex and pivot and capitalize on an opportunity like this, because it's a huge opportunity, Michael. I don't think you understated this at the top of the conversation. Huge opportunity. And so what do? You put in the extra hours and you do the best you can with all of it.
Yeah.
Have
These are those
you? Yeah.
breaks. These are those breaks that people are looking for and hoping for, you know. Everyone wants that break. Well, what is that break? It's different for everyone. But licensing, of course, opens up an opportunity where there are millions of people that watch that show, especially that particular episode.
Yeah.
Right. So there are millions of people that are watching it. There are millions of people that are in that moment. They're sucked into the story. They're sucked into what's happening between those two characters. Now your song is playing there. It's that moment, and it's really, I mean, literally, it's going into the living rooms of millions and millions of people throughout the country, and those are those big breaks.
The fact that people care that much just from 40 seconds in their favorite TV show is like, it's pretty incredible. So yeah, 100%. Any sync placement, but also these like a moment like Grey's, and especially the finale. And I know that conversation between Nick and Meredith specifically is something that like the audience has been waiting for literally all season, right? So this is just I I am a little bit at a loss for words that it was my song, and that this was the opportunity. It's pretty incredible.
Hopefully you're seeing, I mean, I'm curious to know, are you seeing any stats already coming in through Spotify? Do you have access to those analytics, and what are you seeing happening?
it's worth noting that people don't consume TV the way they used to either. People watch it on demand primarily. So the night of, I feel like we got like 800 Shazams, and then the next day I woke up and there was like 1600, and then like every single day since, it's like slowly building up because people have this on their radar, but they have their own busy lives, and now they can just like, wait until they have 2 hours free and sit down and experience it. So as people are experiencing this in real time in their timelines, we are seeing them slowly trickle into our world. And yeah, I would say there's about 1,000% lift between this song being released and even a single that we have put some significant like 6 weeks of lead up into, and maybe some playlisting, and it's pretty significant. 1,000% is like it's insane, honestly.
It's amazing.
Now, I know that the duration from the very first opportunity to submit to when you finally got the placement was like 6 months, over 6 months.
Yeah, and actually like multiple versions of the song itself too. There was another version that features kind of like an arpeggiated piano in the intro. And I got feedback. I've been fortunate enough to like have some conversations with music supervisors directly and get some feedback for certain things that I'm playing them. This song happened to be one of those, and the feedback from that person, which I'm very thankful for, led me to kind of create the more acoustic guitar driven in like version. And so I believe that I actually had pitched the piano driven version to Justin in the past too. It was probably for like a previous season. And then yeah, we pitched this mix first in, oh, Jody, you're gonna have to keep me honest here too. It
The
was like
community. Yeah, it was
September, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then again in it
January.
was either January or February.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's end of May now. And so yeah, people collect at the beginning of a season, and I mean, everybody has their own processes. Like sometimes they continue to collect throughout a season if they're looking for other stuff. But I feel like they collect pretty early on, or at least they start collecting pretty early on. And um, I've heard of folks who like pitch for like, I mean, we are in season 19 now, so we'll just count backwards. Like I'm making it up. Like you might pitch for season 16 and it winds up in season 19,
Yeah.
You just never know. It really is a game of patience and just like putting your best foot forward, making sure you're cultivating these relationships, and people like to hear from you, and you know, things will happen.
And you bring up a good point about someone hearing something somewhere along your journey. They hear one of your songs, and you think they forgot about it, but they heard it. So it's planted in their mind, and it could be like you say, a year later, 2 years later, it could be 9 years later. That's happened, and for some reason, they pull it. Didn't mean they didn't like it. They never got back to you 9, 10 years ago, but they liked it and they heard it, and their subconscious remembers that, and that can absolutely be a big part of getting a placement. I believe that. I totally believe that. I love that you took us on a journey with your song, and the journey that you went on was incredibly powerful. And then you said the song itself is understated but powerful, and your journey too. It's very humbling, and you're clearly a very humble guy, and it comes through in the song itself. So, fantastic job on the song. I mean, ultimately, to reiterate to anyone who's watching or listening how difficult it is, and how many stages rather this had to go through. to land in this particular spot, how many decision makers were involved for that to happen? I mean, even when I pitched it, it was one of 12 songs being pitched, right? So
Yep.
how many other me's were pitching songs, 12 songs, 12 songs, 12 songs, 12 songs, 10 songs, 5 songs. So they went through so much music to narrow it down. Congrats to you again, Will, and thanks for doing this with us and taking us through the process. I think my big takeaway is the authentic thing, to keep it real when you're writing, whether it is an up-tempo pop song or something more personal and difficult and emotional. Just keep it real. It needs to come from a real place. If you pull from a real place and put that into the song, and then, like you said, if you produce it with sync in mind, why don't we expand on that briefly about producing with sync in mind? Could you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, 100%. Before we jump into that, though, I do just want to recognize that the two of you, I mean, it's kind of amazing to see you partnering together in this new way and joining your communities into one. Separately, you both have been super, super instrumental in kind of like helping me educate myself about all of this over several years, actually. And so, first, before I jump into the production stuff, which is a great, great question, but I just want to say thank you. This is a really, really complicated space. And I think that both of you are quite generous in sharing everything that you've learned over the years with folks like myself, and everybody else who is a part of this community. And hopefully it continues to grow. I mean, I think it's a really great space, not only for the opportunities themselves, which are incredible, but also just the community itself, because we are our communities, if that makes any sort of sense. So thank you both. And I hope this feels as much like a win to you guys as it does to me. So production. Yeah, I didn't used to be such a great producer. I still think there's probably lots to learn. I think all of us are on a constant journey to learn. And when I say producing with sync in mind, it's first about the song. Like, what does the song feel like it should be? Like, what's the vibe? And then taking that vibe that the song authentically is kind of like telling you it needs. It's about keeping your finger on the pulse of what is being placed, what artists are being placed, what artists are being placed all the freaking time. Like, there are several in all kind of like sonic ranges that I could name, that are constantly getting sync placements. And part of that is great representation. And another part of that is being able to dial in the the impact where it needs impact, and the space where it needs space, and the ability to giving the editors the ability to edit like places where they can actually cut the song, because the song is not just going to go to picture. Like there were a couple edits actually, they did for the scene in Grays. So like they don't just put on a song and let it play. It can seem like that sometimes, but there's editing involved. So make all of that easy. And I think it's interesting. You can't please everybody with one song. There have been several supervisors that I've shown silence to, where they're like, "Oh, I wish it got really big and exploded," and that's not this song. I have other songs that'll do that for them. So I guess it's a healthy balance of listening to what the song needs and then trying to find something that is already working in the space where you want your song, or where you could see your song living in the sync world. and trying to kind of like lean in that direction. And obviously you should never be copying anybody. You should be taking inspiration from yourself and like honing your own craft to be your own authentic producer. But a gentle lean in the right direction can do wonders for the production of a song.
I love the line "Trust the silence when it gets too loud," and I love that you pointed that out. And you know, it's a great line because it can take on so many different meanings for different situations. So I think you hear a lot when people talk about writing for sync, keeping sync in mind. Some people misuse or misinterpret, I should say, keeping it, and not that you intentionally did this, but keeping it general, lyrics more general and open to interpretation. And that's a great example of a lyric where you didn't say, oh gosh, I'm not going to even attempt it on the spot, but trust the silence. You didn't say like, my head hurts and I'm feeling sad. You said something that was more powerful and understated and cinematic. Even the statement, trust the silence when it gets too loud, is a cinematic statement. So I think that's why a big part of the reason of why it works so well in this scene was that line. And I'd be curious to know, because I can't think of it, what was the last line of the song that you said had the build up and your co-writer said, no, let's just end it there, but then the line came to you? What was that line?
The line is, a final word, the curtain falls, silence will embrace us all.
Wow. And it sounds like you channeled that from your grandmother, which I think is also something to remain open to. I believe that when you receive when you close your eyes and you just sit in the silence, you receive these thoughts. Sometimes some lyrics come from who knows where, some otherworldly place, and you embrace that and you remained open to that. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful song and very well written. So great job.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Finally, how can people learn more about Ships Have Sailed? What's next for Ships Have Sailed? Let everyone know what you have coming up and how they can find you and listen to the upcoming songs you have. You just released a record. Right?
Yeah. I released a record with a lot of firsts on it. It was completely made by accident. We just basically we recorded a live stream concert as the kind of the release party for our full-length record that we released last year. And the recording turned out so great that I had to dig into the mix over the holidays. And so I nerded out on that. And it's a live album called Live from Ojai, because that's where we recorded it last year. So then there's Silence, which just was released just a little over a week ago. And before I diverge too much, people can find us at shipshavesailed.com or anywhere on socials at shipshavesailed. And coming up next, I'm having a little daughter in the next couple days, and there will be more music also joining the world this year. I have nothing specific to announce yet, but just, get in touch. Stay in touch with us online and on socials or on our email list, and you'll know about everything.
Awesome. The song was Silence by Ships Have Sailed, and you guys can all find Will online. And thank you so much, Will, for taking the time out with us. And best of luck with what happens next. Your daughter come any day now. How exciting. And
super exciting.
Yeah, so
yeah, thank you guys so much for the opportunities, for this opportunity and for all the opportunities that you afford all of us, really. And it's great to see both of your faces. Thanks for chatting with me.